It's being driven by parents across the country because parents want options. They want to be able to send their kids to the best school that's going to work best for those kids. In some families, you have one child who goes to a public school because that's the best for that child, and the next child is either homeschooled or goes to private school. We're seeing now where parents want the option to do what's best for that specific child. And so across the country now, you're seeing many states go toward this universal school choice model.
Welcome to Straight to the Point. I'm your host, Representative Joe Diorsi. In a world of long-windedness, I'm here to deliver you the Capitol News in 10 minutes or less. So, let's get straight to the point.
In studio today, in person, in the flesh, I have Andrew Lewis. He is the former representative of the 105th Legislative District, current Army captain, and current president and CEO of the Commonwealth Foundation. Andrew, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me on your podcast, Joe. Great to be with you.
Yeah, so tell me about the Commonwealth Foundation. What's your core values, your mission,
Absolutely.
and what took you there?
Yeah, so the Commonwealth Foundation is a free market public policy think tank focused on the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Our mission is to transform free market ideas into public policies, empowering all Pennsylvanians to thrive. Our vision is to make sure that we transform Pennsylvania into the leading state for opportunity and prosperity. And we want to do that. We want to become the most effective policy think tank in America through operating efficiently and things like that and saying focus on that core mission.
Yep.
What got me there was after leaving the legislature, so during my tenure in the legislature, I focused heavily on free markets, on school choice, on government reform, on government transparency. And when I left the legislature, went back to the private sector, back to the construction industry, a couple years, and it turns out Commonwealth Foundation, my predecessor, Charles Mitchell, announced he was moving on to his next chapter. And so my core values and the policies that I championed really aligned very closely with those of Commonwealth Foundation. Perfect fit. I applied for the position. I was blessed to be selected for the position. And here I am about 9.5 months in, rocking and rolling, and it's going really well.
Yeah. So you mentioned school choice when you were in the legislature. I
Yeah.
believe it was House Bill 1.
That's right, yes.
You authored. Interesting that we're here talking about school choice education. Certainly it's one of Commonwealth's pillars is school choice. Yep. What's on the horizon in the Keystone State? School choice across the nation, whether it's universal or I like to call nibbling around the edges, scholarships, tax credits, the momentum is real.
Yeah.
Certainly I've been on the front lines with school choice in Pennsylvania, but looking from your perspective, where are we headed and where do we hope to go?
Yeah, well, one, you've been an incredible champion on school choice, and it's just been tremendous the things you've done on this issue. When you zoom out a little bit beyond Pennsylvania, you look at the national landscape and you look at where states are going, and it's being driven by parents across the country because parents want options. They want to be able to send their kids to the best school that's going to work best for those kids. In some families, you have one child who goes to a public school because that's the best for that child, and the next child is either homeschooled or goes to private school. We're seeing now where parents want the option to do what's best for that specific child, and so across the country now you're seeing many states go toward this universal school choice model. And so Pennsylvania lags behind a little bit. We do have the EITC and OSTC, which are tax credit scholarship programs. They're very successful, but we need to get to a universal school choice model where every parent in Pennsylvania has that option to send their kids to a school of their choice.
Yep. So the budget looms.
Yeah, it does.
In fact, as we were walking down here, I had a Pittsburgh Post-Gazette story fresh on my mind from this morning that claimed, and this is news to me, so a reporter knew before a legislator, that we were ready, poised to go into late summer, I think the verbiage was. It's a big spend. The governor's proposal, as you know, is $51.47 billion. There's a $800 million plus addition to basic education funding. Skill games, legalized marijuana is in the conversation. From your standpoint, why is 51.47 the wrong number for Pennsylvania?
Yeah, well, first of all, constitutionally, the budget has to balance. And so you can't spend more money than you have revenue to cover for. And so when you're going 51 plus billion and you don't have anywhere near that revenue, you have to make some hard choices and take a hard look. So the first rule is it has to balance fiscally. Second rule is it's got to be responsible. And so I think we've got to take a hard look at all the different discretionary spending and be responsible and get to a responsible number and make sure that there are the revenues to cover that number. And you got to do it without raising people's taxes.
Yep.
And so that's, I think, priority number one. And if you can't do that with the number you have, you're going to have to adjust that number.
Yep. So the REINS Act actually passed in the Senate. It's a tough sell, to be honest, with the Democratic governor, Democratic House. Why would something like the REINS Act or TABOR is what we're used to calling it, why would that be an important thing for the sustainability of our economy in Pennsylvania?
Sure. So when we talk TABOR, Taxpayer's Bill of Rights, and typically the legislative vehicle is a constitutional amendment called the Taxpayer Protection Act to get that done. Taxpayer Protection Act basically says, hey, you can't increase spending beyond the rate of inflation population growth. So if you're losing population and inflation's reasonable, you really can't dramatically increase your spending. It reins in, it limits that growth. So that's TABOR, traditionally called Taxpayer's Bill of Rights or Taxpayer Protection Act. We would have saved billions of dollars of spending and taxes had we enacted that years ago.
Yep.
So enacting that is so crucial. Now, you mentioned the REINS Act, which goes into regulatory reform, Regulation of Executive in Need of Scrutiny Act, REINS. And that basically says for every new regulation we put on the books, you've got that if it has a certain economic impact, let's say it has $1 million economic impact, if that's the threshold, the legislature has to approve it. So if you take those two things, TPA, Taxpayer Protection Act, and the REINS Act, you're going to transform Pennsylvania because you're not going to be wasting as much government dollars. You're going to be spending way less, and you're not going to be killing people with these regulations, killing jobs, killing businesses, because they're going to go through a legislative process.
Yeah. So I did conflate the two. You're right, but REINS.
But hey, if you add both of them, is my point.
Yes.
You'd be
we'd
transformative.
Be in business. So let's talk about competitiveness.
Yeah.
We have states like Ohio, frankly, to the west that are kicking our butts.
Yep.
We have a governor that likes to, when he's in front of a camera lens, he likes to talk about how competitive he is.
Yeah.
Constantly at sporting events. That's fine. I share his view of being competitive, but the facts are we're not.
Yeah.
We're a leader in domestic net migration. We've lost hundreds of thousands of people domestically in the past decade. Economic outlook, competitiveness, performance, according to rich states, poor states, the economists, we're really lagging behind. What are maybe 2 or 3 areas of focus? We certainly talked about regulation and Taxpayer Protection Act. What are some policy initiatives that we could enact where next year, the following year, we can start to come up in the rankings and competitiveness?
Yeah, it's such a great question because Pennsylvania should be leading the nation. Geographically, we're the center of the East Coast. We have incredible natural resources here. And I think if you look at it in terms of how you look at a business, I've built and kind of revamped several businesses, transformed a couple of teams and businesses. And if you look at, hey, what's our natural advantage? And let's lean into that first and foremost. And then from there, let's start to get the structural clarity around how we operate. So number one, competitive advantage in Pennsylvania is our natural resources, our energy. We have enough Marcellus and Utica shale under our feet to power the entire nation's electric grid for decades, if not a century. So that's number one. We need to lean into that. Unfortunately, we have a governor who's trying to expand the alternative energy portfolio standards. He's trying to basically expand our dependence on unreliable energy sources. When we have natural gas, why not lean into that competitive advantage?
It's clean in 2025.
It's clean. In fact, as output has gone up, emissions have gone down. So it's the best argument for clean energy.
In fact, Pennsylvania, not being officially part of RGGI, has outpaced the surrounding RGGI states in reducing carbon emissions.
That's exactly right. So there's no need to have an artificial government-mandated solution that cripples our top natural resource. That's number one. Number two is you need that structural operating process, which in our case is the regulatory climate. We have over 160,000 regulations on the books in Pennsylvania. The landscape's constantly evolving, and if you're a investor or a business looking at Pennsylvania, it's way easier to invest your money in Ohio, where you know what the regulatory landscape looks like, versus Pennsylvania, where it's constantly shifting and it's overly burdened with regulations.
That's scary for any entrepreneur looking to set up
camp. It's absolutely scary because not only do you have to wade through just a minefield of regulations, but they're shifting on you and they're changing, so it's tough. And the final element I think you need to look at is the people people landscape, the talent market. And in order to get the people, you need them to be well educated. In order to be well educated, you have to have options. And so that's vocational technical schools, that's private schools, that's public schools, it's charter schools, and it's homeschool, and making sure that from the time a kid is in K through 12 education into and through post-secondary ed, there's got to be choices and options. And that's why we're such passionate advocates for school choice.
Yep. So lightning round question here,
sure.
Andrew. Commonwealth Foundation does a lot of polling.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, what does the research show? What's the pulse of Pennsylvanians on maybe 2 or 3 data points you can give me?
Yeah, well, one is over 50% of Pennsylvania families would choose to send their child to a private school if they had the means. Over 50%. So that means that a lot of these government school districts really have to up their game to meet the needs of these parents. Simultaneously, there has to be alternative options. That's one big data point. Another, over 80% of Pennsylvanians are supportive of school choice policies. Those are 2 data points that we need to really look at and say, if the vast majority of our Commonwealth, of parents in our Commonwealth support this, and then a majority of them would actually send their own kid to a private school if they could, we got to relook at what we're doing and actually support policies that are going to empower the parents of Pennsylvania.
Yeah. He is Representative Emeritus Andrew Lewis, Army Captain and President and CEO of the Commonwealth Foundation. Andrew, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me on, Joe.
This has been Straight to the Point. Visit repjod.com/mypodcasts.